Now I'm going to introduce Francesca, who's going to be diving deeper into the more advanced features BioRender has to offer. Francesca Kim is BioRender's Scientific Communications and Customer Success Manager. She has a background in biomaterials research and a passion for scientific storytelling. Fran is one of our webinar superstars here at BioRender, as you'll see in this upcoming 201 session. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Francesca.
Oh, thank you, Jeff, for the very kind introduction. Can everyone hear me okay? I just want to do a quick mic check to let me know if my sound quality looks okay. And if you can see my screen, it should just say BioRender 201. Awesome. All right. So hello, everyone. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Francesca, and I'm just going to walk you through some of our newer and more advanced features, building on some of the concepts that Jacqueline already touched on. So basically what we'll cover today, I sectioned it off to 4 major features that I thought were super relevant in either customization or saving time. So the first 2 are multi-select and alignment tools that I'm going to go through with you. The second 2 are kind of customization tools for shapes and lines. I'm also going to be covering 2 new features of connector lines and custom icon colors, which are super excited to show you today as well. All right, so let's dive into some of these advanced features. I'm going to go and start with saving time with some of our multi-select and alignment tools. So if you're ever in a situation where you have a lot of something in an environment, whether that's like cytokines or antibodies, maybe even cells in a solution, this feature really saves you time in terms of, say you wanted to edit all of these antibodies at once. Instead of selecting on each of them one by one like this, and then maybe changing the color. If you did want to say maybe change all of these antibodies to like a red or a purple color, we have this really cool feature, and I'll show you how to do it. Is you just click on it, right click on it, and then select all the same icons. And this actually selects every single type of that icon across your whole canvas, so that you can edit it and change it all together. So if I wanted to make it red or purple, I can go ahead and do that instead of trying to change one by one over here. And I'll show you how to do more detailed versions of this in a bit. But for example, in this scenario, you could have probably highlighted all of this and changed it all together. But there are certain scenarios where this is really, really helpful. So one of that is examples like this in the tumor microenvironment, where maybe you have a lot of these like immune cells and cancer cells all bunched up together, and kind of the nightmare of trying to change every single one of these cancer cells one by one. We've kind of eliminated that for you so that you can right click on it again, select all of the same icons, and it'll even select the one in my legend too. So it's across your whole canvas, and then you can change it all together like this. So while you're picking the color here for any of these images, I'm going to be throwing in a little bit of design tips and tricks as well. So for example, for this image, our cancer cells are in this green color and our immune cells are more in this reddish color. And if you recall, a lot of times, like reading storybooks or comic books as a kid, a lot of times, if you have a really obvious bad guy versus good guys, like an antagonist versus protagonist in your story, you can usually see that a lot of these bad guys are this like reddish tone. And even in this image here of this like Darth Vader fighting Luke Skywalker, you can see even in their lightsabers, it's like red versus green. And these concepts are used a lot in storytelling, and you can also use these in your scientific images as well. So good guys in like more of this coolish, greenish, bluish tone. Here are some more examples from our favorite like characters back in the day. Disney and Pixar does this a lot, using color concepts to kind of low-key tell their stories as well. And you can see that red usually denotes like danger, stop, and bad. So keeping this in mind, going back to our figure as well over here with this tumor microenvironment, we can now see that there's this cancer cell, which is obviously a very bad guy. So I'm going to go ahead and change this not from a green color, but more to maybe like a reddish tone. So we have a few options over here. Maybe I'll use this one for now. And these immune cells, just based on the color, look kind of scary. So and dendritic cells are actually really good cells for your body. So I'm going to go ahead and change that maybe to more of a greenish color. And then these are macrophages. So maybe I'll change that to a blue color. And just like that, even looking at this image from not even changing any words or composition, just from color, you can see that a lot of the storytelling has become a bit more clear in this tumor microenvironment image. Yep, so that's just one way you can use this feature and then also keep those color concepts in mind. Next thing I wanted to touch on is things like this. So I like the way this protocol is laid out. It looks really nice. It's really nicely organized, but I do have this protein of interest over here that I want to really focus on, and I want my readers to focus on over here as well. But it's kind of fading in or blending in with all the other elements just because it's that blue color, and a lot of the other icons in this image are also blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select all of the same icons again, like we did previously. It's going to select all of them and all of these different zoom in boxes, even this purification one. And why don't we go ahead and change this color to more of a orange color? And I'm choosing orange actually because orange is a complementary color to blue. So if you recall like color wheels and learning about that as a kid, when I say complementary color, it just means any color that's on the opposite end of the color wheel. So kind of red to green over here, blue to orange, or kind of purple to yellow. And when these colors are placed next to each other, they actually create a really strong contrast, and it lets the other one pop out a lot more. And that's why I'm choosing orange against the blue background here. I've seen a lot of companies actually do this for their logos because you want logos to stand out a lot. So you see like the blue on orange here, the red on green, maybe the yellow with the purple. So these are kind of real life examples where you can also use to make your images, whether that's a protein of interest, whether that's like part of your DNA, really pop and stand out. I hope that's clear. Let me know if you have any questions. I do have the chat open on the right-hand side of my screen. So if you have any other questions, let me know, and I'm happy to go through that as well. All right, so besides color saving and saving time with colors, this feature can also help with alignment tools. So if you have a situation like this where all my cells are kind of scattered around my canvas, instead of aligning it one by one like this, what I can also do is just right click on it again, select all the same icons, and we actually have this cool alignment feature at the top toolbar over here. You can distribute it evenly so that all the cells are evenly spaced out. And then you can also align them all to the center. Really easy in a few like seconds, two different steps, you can make them all align really perfectly. So I just find that that's like a feature that have saved me so much time in the past. And this is pretty simple. It's just like 5 blood cells over here. But if you look at examples like this, where you're working with like protocols and it becomes a longer stretch of icons, even like these boxes, instead of trying to align, pixel push all of these 1 pixel at a time, all you have to do is just select all of them. Again, distribute it over here, just repeating what we covered, and then align them all together so you don't have to actually do it one by one. So that was just like select all and distribute has saved me so much time. I wanted to share that with you as well for one of our advanced features. And yeah, I hope that's clear. Let me know if you have any questions about that. And I can move on to the next over here. The next tip I have is for customization. So we have a lot of different customization tools like shapes and lines in BioRender. I know there were some questions about it in the chat as well, which I can cover now. But the first thing I wanted to cover was a tool. I guess internally we call it the custom blob tool. I don't know if there's like an official name for it. Shiz, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I call it the custom blob tool. It's a kind of a funny name, but it's all of these customized tools over here. And they all kind of behave very similarly. So I'm just going to touch on one of them. I won't go through every single one, but these are super, super cool tools. If you don't have as much of a steady hand with your mouse as I do, I've seen our illustrators draw everything freehand, but I don't know if I can do that. So I use this tool a lot to just kind of drag around and make any custom shapes that I need to. So over here, I don't know if you can see, but you can see a lot of different nodes. So some of them are filled in blue. Those are your existing anchor points. And some of them are white, and you can drag these out to make a new anchor point. And every time you drag one out, a new one appears, and you can infinitely start editing and creating any shape that you need to over here, whether that's like a weird jelly bean shape or squiggles, anything you need over here. And then you can even further edit and customize all the borders and the fills. Kind of similar to the bio brushes that Jacqueline covered, but more in a shape version. And you're probably wondering where you might use this tool. It's kind of a weird tool. It looks pretty funny. And one area where you can actually use it is places like this. So I've seen it, and it doesn't only have to be for the brain. It can be for maybe livers or any other icon types, really, when you want to highlight specific areas of that. You can go ahead and use that. So why don't I go ahead and show you that? So I personally like the brain because it's a very lobular structure. I feel like it's really good for this. And if there are any neuroscientists in the room, I think you'll appreciate this as well. But yeah, if you want to highlight any sites of any of your icons, maybe you're making a lesion in the brain, or maybe there's like a tumor that's affecting a large area, even like active sites, maybe you administered a drug and the frontal lobe of the brain is a lot more active than the back, and you want to show that. That's something that you can do with this tool as well, really, really easily over here. So maybe this is solely the area I want. I can even go really in detail and like zoom in and like make it really sensitive in terms of like making more nodes and highlighting individual lobes over here. I won't do that for the purposes of our demo, just to save some time, but just feel free to go around, play around with it. One thing I would do from here as well, instead of just throwing the blob on, I would go ahead and change the color of it. And I like using the color presets. You can use the fill color and all the different colors on the rainbow, but I personally like using color presets. It's really fast, and our illustrators have put a lot of time into like matching contrast and what colors look good together. So I find that it's a little faster for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to knock back. Let me just move the canvas over here. I'm actually going to knock back the transparency of just the inside of the fill over here, just so that it's a little more clear. Maybe I'll make it more red, and I'll knock it back more so that you can see the background of the brain showing through through your blob and onto your image. So it really highlights that area without taking away from actually the structure of the brain over here. And yeah, if I wanted to, I can like throw in a tumor maybe. So I can type in tumor. And this is just standard icons like Jacqueline mentioned earlier in the session. Throw that in there, maybe make that a bit smaller. And whether that's that, or if you want to throw in like neurons on there, you can go ahead and do that as well. So maybe instead of a tumor, we want to throw in some pathways. Really cool and easy tools to do this. So why don't I show you how to do that? So we have this neuron 1. This works really similar to all the other kind of nodes that you can drag them around. A new white one's going to appear, and you can keep infinitely dragging this around to make very detailed versions of your track. And then maybe I'll throw in one more neuron here, and I'm actually going to flip it using this little button over here so that it's tail to head and not just head to head of my neurons. And there you go. In a matter of seconds, I've kind of created the brain. I've created like highlighting regions where it's more active, and then the tracks that go along with it. And I do want to note that all our arrows under insert line, so anything from line to these neurons, all behave very similarly in that you can just drag them out, drag out the nodes. I think someone had a question from the audience earlier of like changing the width of these, which you can definitely do as well. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that really quickly while we're touching on these neurons and these customization tools. Cool. So we have that. So we have the brain, we have all of this, and then we have the blob tool. That's just one use case. Another use case I would say is like making your own protein. So this just kind of looks like a jelly bean or a little kidney bean, but if you add in a DNA on top of it, it becomes basically a protein, maybe even a CRISPR protein. And say you made a mutation in the protein, and maybe this little like concaved area, you made it more concave, you can go ahead and use the blob tool to go and manipulate that. So whether you made a mutation to make it a little more concave than this like cleavage site, you can go ahead and do that. So that's another example of where you can use this funny looking shape to really tell your story in your illustrations. All right, and I just have a few use case examples here as well that I wanted to highlight. Some of our illustrators have done before. It looks really complicated, but essentially it's just the brainstem and a cross section of the brain, I believe, like at the basal ganglia. And all of these are just literally those like tools that I showed you that you can edit and drag the nodes around to edit. All right. Next feature I wanted to highlight was circular arrows, just because I've seen a lot of people make cycles on BioRender, and I feel like this is a really underappreciated feature. One of my favorite features actually is this, because why don't I make it bigger so you can see it better? But essentially, it's just an arrow that goes in a full circle. It auto aligns automatically every time. You can actually go ahead and put your cursor over this white node, and if you take a look, it turns into a scissor icon. And you can actually cut it at different areas and drag it around. So really, really great for making like cycles. Another example of it is like for plasmid maps. If you need to make these like gene maps over here, really great for that. And I'll show you how to do that really quickly. Maybe we'll just thicken this up a little, add in these arrows. I usually find that plasmid map arrows are smaller heads. So I'm just going to shrink that. I'm going to cut it at different parts for gene A. So I'll cut gene A. Really quickly, I'll cut gene B as well. Gene C, I'll make it a little smaller over here. This tool takes a little more getting used to, but I promise once you get the hang of it, it's super, super easy to use. We have our kind of plasmid map here. Why don't I go ahead and match the colors as well? Just as a side tip, if you're labeling something, matching colors to the label is actually super helpful in helping your audience understand the feature and what we're talking about. Let's see over here. Maybe I'll make this more of a yellow tone. It seems like my computer is lagging a little bit, so why don't I go ahead and just do this a little quicker over here. And just in a matter of seconds, you're able to make that gene plasmid map. You can show it in the context of an Eppendorf tube. A few more examples of where these like circular arrows come into play, and I find that are pretty useful, are things like these like phase diagrams or phase cycles for projects. Essentially, these are just like circular arrows that have been designed in a cool way. So these are just sectioned off circular arrows, if you can see here, that the head, it was kind of thickened and the head is gotten rid of. Over here as well, this like cycle for the project cycle is essentially one big arrow that's been cut up and like text boxes are just put around it. So these ones that look really cool, but kind of difficult to make, if you break it down, it's actually very simple. It's those circular arrows that are just put together. I saw this one where our illustrators made. I thought it looked really cool. It looks really complicated, but essentially, if you do need to make cycles like this, it's this is actually just like 3 big circles. These circular arrows, if you can see 1, 2, and if you can spot the third one, it's this little one over here, this third one over here. And essentially, it's just 3 circular arrows that were cut apart and there's icons in between them. So a lot of these really complicating looking processes too, if you know how to use the tool, you can just break it down, add in the icons, and I think you're at a good place to start creating those cycles. All right. So let me know if you have any questions about that. It seems like everyone is saying it's pretty clear on your end, but happy to go over anything and stick around for questions at the end as well. But I did want to highlight the last 15 minutes on really introducing and highlighting new features, and 2 that I handpicked that I was specifically excited for, again, with the concept of saving time and on the concept of customization. The first thing I wanted to highlight was actually connector lines. This is a feature that I've been waiting for a long time for us to launch, and I'm really excited that we did. So remember the arrows that we just went through of like how to use that? We actually have new versions of these arrows where you can connect it together. And the really cool use cases like examples like this, where if I wanted to shift this diagram so it's not like this, but maybe I wanted to make it like this, and then I need to move the arrow over. Maybe I want to change it like this and make protein A point to protein B. It is pretty simple. I didn't know it could get any better, but we have made it so that we've made these connector lines. So you can actually pull up arrows now. And if you hover over any of our boxes, they have these like nodes over here. And I can see that I'll zoom in a little bit too. So you can see this node and it turns blue, and I can connect one node to another node. So it kind of snaps into place here. I can connect it here, or I can connect it here. I'm going to connect it here because this is the diagram I'm trying to make. And it seems like this is pointing to the left side of the box. So I'm just connecting the bottom to the left side of protein B. So protein A bottom to protein B is what I'm doing. And this allows it to just drag around wherever it goes. I don't have to switch the arrow and the boxes separately. It just auto drags around. Really, really cool. So that if I wanted to change the placement here, I can just do that. And all I have to do is make this little bend. And there you go. That's how connector lines work. A lot less steps to get to where we wanted to do with this. I also want to highlight that these arrows are not just for text boxes. They actually hook onto our icons as well. So this example of a Petri dish, if I wanted to move this over, instead of moving the icon and then all the arrows and then being like, never mind, I want to move it back, saves a lot of time just moving the main things, and then your arrows just follow you automatically. So really great for processes, protocols, things like these workflows. Actually, one design tip I have as well, when you're making these like complicated diagrams with a lot of like arrows, I would try to limit the number of angles going out from your boxes. So for example, like in this case, instead of having this angle going out from this label to this label, maybe just making it a right angle would be easier. So if I wanted to shift this and make this a right angle, I have to like move the arrow separately like this. Whereas if this is connected, I can just move it right along like this automatically, and the arrow just follows. So that's the big difference. I've kind of made it so that the left side of this isn't connected and the right side is. So examples of like, say you want to shift all the labels down slightly, I would have to like switch the arrows here, drag out this arrow, and then drag this one down. Whereas this one, if I wanted to shift this label and maybe processing details down, I can just shift it down. The arrows automatically follow me up and down. And there you go. So that's our connector lines, which I thought was really, really cool. Another example in this kind of like pathway is that, again, keeping in mind with like limiting the number of angles that are branching out from your icons. If I wanted to make this more of a right angle and I need to change this, I would have had to like move this individually one by one and all the arrows to follow. Whereas in this case, because it's used with our connector lines, I can just drag it right in and decide, yeah, I do want to make it a right angle because I remember the tip about limiting angles in your images. And there you go. It's a lot faster. So that's another use case where this is kind of the before, this is the after. Right angles look better. So if you want to switch it up and use connector lines to make it easier, go ahead and do that. I hope that feature is clear. Let me know if you have any questions about that, and I'm happy to stick around later on or in a future session as well. The next tip I wanted to go through actually was customization, and this is a feature that I think everyone was really excited for on the team to launch. I was really excited for. I've seen some people in the audience as well talk about this feature, and it's actually customizing the color in which our icons are offered. So things like this one, this is just a C elegant. I can go into edit, and I know for those of you who've used BioRender in the past, you're probably used to all these like color presets, which are really beautiful. Jacqueline has covered in previous in her previous session as well. But you can change the color like this, but we can also do color overlays now, which allows you to have like a more wide range of colors, almost unlimited a range of colors that you can do. So why don't I go ahead and show you? If I wanted to make the C elegant maybe like a turquoise color, I can actually drag this scale around and make it any shade of this possible. Maybe I want to make it a specific branded color. I can type in the actual hex code. So I have the hex code for BioRender Blue in front of me just because a plug that we're at a BioRender event. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. Maybe it's a branding that you want. It could be your company branding. It could be your school's branding as well. And that's basically how you would change that. And that's just over available here on color overlay. Whoops, I'm just going to go here. On color overlay, you click on this little plus sign, and then you can pick any color you want, type in the hex code, depending on if it's like dependent on your brand or dependent on your school logo. Maybe it's just your favorite color. You can go ahead and do that. A few more editors that are available here now. You can make it transparent. The saturation is something that you weren't able to edit before, but now you can. So if you want to make it a little less that's saturated, meaning like less color pigments to more, you can go ahead and do that over here with the slider. This is a really cool feature that I'll highlight in the next slide, which is glow, which is really good for like illuminescence and like GFPs and things like that. I wanted to highlight this mouse because while playing around with it, I realized that we can actually now change individual aspects of icons as well. So for example, previously you were kind of used to this like color presets again. Maybe I want to make this like a brown mouse. I can go ahead and do that. But now you can actually select like the flesh and the fur and the eyes separately. So what I mean by that, really, really cool. The flesh over here, I'm selecting that. It refers to all the skin here. So if I wanted to make it red, versus like purple or even like this green color, I can do that. It's really, really cool. Maybe I'll make it like a purplish pink over here. I can do that. Yeah, maybe I'll make it pink for now and I'll apply that. Super cool, right? And then the eyes as well. I don't know if anyone's noticed. I just figured this out yesterday, but if I click on some of these icons and I click on the eye, I can change the eye color as well. So if I wanted to make it red, versus blue versus like green glowing, I can do that as well. So really, really cool as well. This is like one of the customization features that I thought was exciting. And you can click on all the different layers just by selecting it here. All right. And one example of the glowing feature I actually wanted to highlight was if you have an example of, let's say, like a virus or protein, and you want to make sure that, the outer things are glowing or it's a GFP, Poly will actually highlight like commenting as well in the next feature. But over here, for example, if your PI was like, make these fluorescent green, and then they actually gave me like a hex code to go with it, I can just go ahead and select all of these proteins together. Maybe make it that green color that I wanted to by just typing that in over here. I'm just going to select the screen for now. And then maybe just playing around with the saturation a bit. And then if you can actually go to this glow and you can make it a glowing protein over here, which I thought was super cool. So whether, the glowing is activated or deactivated in your image, you can just go ahead and change that up here and how strongly it's activated there. So that was, I thought, a cool feature that we added as well that I also wanted to highlight. Awesome. And last tip I had, it's kind of cheesy, but it was just to remember to have fun. Our team internally has a lot of fun, like thinking of all these features and building them out for you and working with the community such as yourselves create a lot of these features. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows of all the different features and make sure you have fun with it as well. We do have like bioemoji avatars that you can set up if you want. So all you have to do is like click and type in bioemoji, pick the emoji that you like, let's say maybe this one, and then you can decorate it depending on what you like. So you can kind of put a face on it. Maybe I'll move this, arrange it to the back for now. Over here, I can put like faces on it. I like pizza, so I'll add that, and maybe a little coffee cup that I can drag out the arm here, and I can hold it. And maybe a hat. So once you make your bioemoji, you can even go ahead and add it and save it as your avatar over here. Pretty fun little side thing that you can do, and it'll actually save on the top right-hand corner. So make sure you go ahead and customize your avatars if you haven't done so already. We also have these really fun virtual backgrounds in our template library that our team works really hard to make it a little more enjoyable working from home. We also have like a lot of cool infographics that we collaborate with experts in the field and trying to, bring up new science content, make it more accessible for everyone. So make sure you check those out as well. I believe this one was actually made in conjunction with the lab that won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2020. So yeah, we do a lot of these things as well. And last but not least, I did want to highlight that a lot of the features that I covered today and Jacqueline's covering as well, we have these activity sheets in BioRender as well under our template library. If you want to check them out and try them out yourselves and play around with it and kind of learn how to do it step by step, we have activity sheets for you that you can like go ahead and try out as well. So that was my last tip, I guess, a little cheesy, but yeah, just remember to have fun, enjoy yourself on BioRender as well. And I wanted to say thank you for joining me and thank you for joining the session. Unfortunately, it's 30 minutes, so it's up pretty quick, but I hope you're all enjoying BioRender Visualize 2021. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you back in the chat, and I'll be answering some questions.
Wow. Thank you, Francesca. So much goodness in there. And a huge kudos and thank you to our BioRender engineering team who has been working tirelessly to bring you all of those new features that you saw: connector lines, shared folders, custom PDB uploads, custom icon colors, real-time collaboration, which we're going to learn more about in just a second. It's great to see the pace of innovation here at BioRender. And I think, as you could see in Francesca and Jacqueline's demos, the amount of customization and the precision with which you can communicate your science as easily as you can in a BioRender is really, I think, helping accelerate the pace at which our customers and users are able to work at. So really exciting to see. Thank you so much for sharing, Francesca.